Hello, I'm Nate May, and this is going to be a series about Ableton Live, specifically for people who are used to using Soundtrap. So we're going to start with the question, should I switch from Soundtrap to Ableton? And then if the answer is yes, we're going to go through and talk about how to use Ableton, show you how to use Ableton with the knowledge that you have from Soundtrap carrying forward. So you already know how to use a digital audio workstation or a DAW, and so you don't need to relearn everything. You just need to apply what you already know into the new format. So this is Ableton Live. I've got it pulled up. And in this video, we're going to focus on should you switch. So I'm going to go over reasons to stay with Soundtrap, reasons to switch to any professional DAW, and specifically reasons to switch to Ableton. So let's start. Let me just show you one project that I made in both DAWs. Here is Soundtrap, and here's the project in Soundtrap. So I've got 3 tracks here. One is an audio track with a mic that I just recorded. One is a MIDI track with a MIDI piano that I recorded. And then this is a drum track that I created using their, what do they call it? The drums and machines instrument in Soundtrap. So then I went over to Ableton Live and tried to create the same project. And what I don't want you to do is compare the sound of the 2 projects, because what we're interested in is control, not sound. Because in one DAW, something might just sound good out of the box, but in another DAW, something might sound good because you have the ability to make it sound good. So here's what it sounds like here's what a similar project sounds like in Ableton. So as we can see, we also have 3 tracks here. We have the ability to solo, mute, and do all the same things that we can do in Soundtrap. This is, I guess the order is different here. I probably should have made the order consistent. Here we go. So this is an audio track with my mic that I recorded. This is the MIDI Wurlitzer track, and this is the drum kit that I programmed into Ableton. You see you have a lot of other stuff that pops up down here as I click on the different tracks, and we'll go over what all that means. But let's start by just asking the question, why should you stay with Soundtrap? Why shouldn't you switch to Ableton? And I'm going to give you 3 reasons. One is if you are using a Chromebook. So Soundtrap works great on a Chromebook. Ableton does not, because Ableton Live, you have to download it, and there are some interesting hacks for getting Ableton to work on a Chromebook. I don't know if they work. They're pretty long and involved. Also, your Chromebook may or may not be able to handle the processing power that Ableton needs, even if you can get it to work technically. So if you're using a Chromebook, Soundtrap is the DAW for you. Second reason you might want to stay with Soundtrap is if you find Soundtrap confusing. So Soundtrap is a lot simpler and easier than Ableton. So if you're still trying to get your mind around a digital audio workstation or DAW, then you probably want to stick with Soundtrap because it makes everything much more streamlined, and you're still going to learn the basics of how a DAW works, which you can carry forward with you whenever you're ready. And the third reason is if you need real-time collaboration features. So Soundtrap features the ability to add a collaborator, and then you can both be working on a project at once. That's a pretty cool feature that Soundtrap has. You're not going to get that in Ableton. Ableton, you keep all the files on your hard drive, so you just have to use any kind of version control you would with anything else if you were using Ableton. And then I will just say, in terms of pricing, if you get Soundtrap free through your school, it's obviously going to be cheaper. However, it actually, if you are going to buy Soundtrap anyway, and you're going to buy Ableton with the educational discount, it actually, Ableton pays for itself currently after about 10 months. So a reason to stay with Soundtrap, kind of a number 4 could be if you get it for free, it's free. So that would be a great reason. But if you don't get it for free, it actually probably isn't a reason. If you're looking at the intro version of Ableton compared against the intro version of Soundtrap. So now let's get into reasons to switch to any professional DAW. So I wanted to start with this because Ableton is not the only option. You've got Cubase, you have Pro Tools, Logic, FL Studio, and Ableton. Those are all terrific professional DAWs that are used, in the real world. So there are many things that those have in common, and many of those things that they have in common are not true for Soundtrap. So I just wanted to highlight some of those. One is that you own your own project files. So this is huge. Right now with Soundtrap, if you make a project, it lives on the Soundtrap's servers, and if you lose your license, you can never get those files. They'll never let you download them. So that works fine as long as Soundtrap is working fine, and as long as you still have access. But with any other professional DAW, you own the project files. They live on your hard drive or wherever you put them. So you can do anything you want with them, and you don't have to pay to continue to have access to them. So similarly, you own the software. Just because you download the software and you pay, usually with these softwares, I know at least Ableton has a lifetime license, so you pay once and you own it forever. 3, plugins. So any professional or even intermediate or advanced amateur music producer will tell you that plugins are huge because they extend the ability of the software that comes with the software. So what that means is that somebody in some other country could make this incredible plugin that makes your voice sound like it's underwater in a tornado, with like puffer fish swimming everywhere, and it's just like this incredible sound, and you want exactly that sound. It doesn't happen within the software, so you can just add this plugin. And plugins are created in file types that work with any professional DAW. So a plugin can be created independent of the DAW that it lives in. That's why it's a plugin. So plugins are really powerful. There are companies that specialize in making plugins. There are also people who just make them for fun. And that's a really great way to get both a professional and a unique sound is looking for plugins. They don't exist in Soundtrap. 4, reliability. So Soundtrap, if your internet is slow, Soundtrap is slow. If your internet is down, Soundtrap is down. If Soundtrap's servers are down, Soundtrap is down. So with Ableton Live, at least your computer is the thing that has to be able to run for Ableton to run, and you don't have to worry about connection to anything else. And then almost last is just the features. So there are a ton of features, some of which we'll go over during this series, that are available in professional DAWs that are not available in Soundtrap. Some of them include grouping, racks, and general abstraction, as in you can group things together and treat them as a single thing, whereas in Soundtrap you would have to treat them each as separate things. You can bring in video in a lot of professional DAWs. There's just once you get into it, you'll realize there are things you can tweak. There's automations that you can make that are just not available in Soundtrap. I'm sure Soundtrap is adding features, but all of these other DAWs are way ahead of them in terms of the actual features. And Soundtrap knows that because they're trying to make a really accessible entry-level DAW. And then the last one is professionalism. So, any of these professional DAWs are going to be used by professionals. So if you are trying to learn the kind of professional level music production or audio production, you're going to want a professional DAW. Pro Tools is pretty industry standard for audio, for the audio world. And then aside from that, it's mostly a case-by-case basis. Cubase, film composers seem to enjoy Cubase. Logic Pro is sort of a swath of different types of music makers, but many of them are amateur, some are professional. Ableton is a really flexible one. And so next I'll get into specifically reasons to switch to Ableton. So Ableton is a powerful, organized, and streamlined DAW. Let's see. Powerful, organized, and streamlined. So by that, what I mean is that it's designed for producers and for the things that they use DAWs for. And Ableton seems to pay a lot of attention to exactly how people are using the software, how people are making music, and making those things very easy to do. So it's not always intuitive the first time you use it, but once you learn how it works, it's very consistent. It's visually consistent, and it's all has like internal logic that makes a lot of sense once you get used to it. Also, it is extendable. So, in addition to plugins, Ableton has something called Max for Live, which allows you to create your own plugins pretty easily. Actually, it's you don't actually have to know any coding languages. You can just visually patch together objects to create a plugin, which is this really amazing thing, and also means that there's an entire community of people who have made all these weird little plugins that can work in Ableton because of Max for Live. Max for Live doesn't come with the lowest versions of Ableton. You have to either get the suite or purchase it separately. But it is a really powerful extension of the software. You can also attach, and I think probably a lot of DAWs are like this, but obviously you can attach a MIDI keyboard. That's something you can do in Soundtrap as well. But you can also attach a lot of devices like drum machines. You can use your you can use your machines to control knobs in Ableton very easily. It's just in general, it plays well with your whole setup that works beyond Ableton as well. What else would I say? It's industry standard. It's really common in the industry, I'll say. And this is true across a lot of different genres of music, although Ableton is associated in particular with electronic music. That's kind of the world that it came from. The live part came from the fact that, it has this thing called session view, which allows you to make loops and play them live. So I've seen shows where people are looping stuff. We're hearing it as they go. They loop it. They loop over themselves. They layer. They sing. They cut something out. They might fade something over. You can do all of that within Ableton Live, but that's also very, very powerful just to use for recording, which happens in this view. So we'll go over all of those views. Both of those views. We'll go over some of the features and basically how what you already know from Soundtrap maps onto Ableton in the coming videos.